Hello and welcome to the Franchise Tag Fantasy Show. Yes, it's championship weekend for most people. I don't think anyone goes to week 18, surely not. It's championship weekend. So unless you're, if you're a Bears, Texans, Colts, Broncos fan, your season's over. This could be all you have. You could just have fantasy football. So this is an important weekend for a lot of people. Unlike me and you, Adam, we didn't quite make it through the playoffs. We were so close but didn't get there. But it's a big one. It's very important to everyone. How do you feel about the season, and what does championship weekend usually mean to you?
Well, this year it's going to mean nothing because I'm not in it. So I can honestly say I drunk my feelings. I felt like that was very good over the Christmas period. It was there was plenty of wine around, and I got through it. So yeah, it was a bit depressing, and yeah, there's not really a lot else to say to it. Really, my running backs were useless. It's probably the nicest way, and they weren't even bad running backs. That's what's annoying. Like the Jacobs and Swift did nothing. So bloody Dan Campbell.
Well, oddly for this year, it's just the way fantasy goes. If you can get to the playoffs, you can get through. We have the 4th seed against the 7th seed in the final. It's looking like it's going to be a close matchup. So it could be interesting. And then, as we all predicted and as we all wanted, Byron is in the Sacco game for the loser, where there'll be a punishment for the loser. So fingers crossed on that. We need to go back across the shows to find out what we confirmed was going to be the punishment, which I believe was going to be dressed up as a cheerleader and singing a cheer for your rival team and us posting it on the Franchise Tag social media.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, I remember that conversation being had with you and me. I don't remember if it was actually officially done. That's the only thing I would say on the show. That's where I'm a little bit like, I don't know if we did say it or not. But I do remember us having that chat, that would be possibly something. I don't know who came up with it. It may have been me, but I'm not sure.
I've got a feeling it came up in the show that we did with Marcus Grant when we were talking about what punishments he'd seen, because he's in loads of leagues, obviously, and what he'd seen people do. And I think it came about from that, and we adapted it slightly. So, yeah, it needed to be more than what the current punishment was, because the current punishment is more of a reward now. Wearing a Bengals jersey is just not really a punishment, is it? And then the inside joke of wearing Dalton on the back, no one else really gets. So
no, that's true. Yeah, it's not the greatest punishment in the world. So yeah, yeah. I mean, if we did, then that's great. You'll have to find out, and I'm sure whoever comes last will be really looking forward to potentially having that joyous thing thrust upon them as a cheerleader.
Don't finish last. I mean, that's the moral of the story. Listen to our advice. That will get you through. Yeah, we've had a good year. There's been some great advice. Going back across some of the shows, I think we have pulled out some absolute corkers for people to listen to. And like I said, it is championship weekend, so I can't see there being loads of advice for us to give today. I'm guessing you kind of got your team set, but there is a couple of injury worries. There's a couple of question marks. We know fair well that in our league, the two people who are in the final both have had quarterback issues. One of them had Derek Carr. The other one has been a little bit like the team he supports with the Colts. He's been a bit of a carousel of quarterbacks in his own fantasy team, and he's lost Tannehill now as well. So they've had to have a little look at the waivers and dive deep into that. They've gone for, one of them has gone for Baker Mayfield. I think he's going to use him on his bench. Not sure he's going to play him. And the other one has picked up 2 of Sam Darnold and Teddy Bridgewater.
Oh, okay, right. Well, I feel like that kind of makes sense. I know that you came out and said to me that Trev had picked up Sam Darnold, and I was just a little bit like, I kind of get it, but at the same time, he's going up against Tampa Bay. It's not going to be a high-scoring game, and really, most of the points that are going to come from it probably going to come from the running game when it comes to Carolina. So that was kind of the concern with that. Whereas for I feel like when you see the matchup, I feel like Gareth is probably the favourite to win it. With Derrick Henry or not, I think he's probably favourite to win it. And I kind of feel like Trev has to sort of shoot for the moon a little bit on this week in order to get there. And I feel that although Bridgewater might not be the greatest quarterback out there, if you need someone and you've got Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill on your receiving core, I feel like there's a strong chance you could hit a pretty decent chunk of yards out of that. And so that's why I kind of feel like Bridgewater is the obvious one to play. On Gareth's side, he's got Cousins, isn't he?
He's got Cousins, yeah.
Yeah, so he's going to play Cousins then. So I'm not too sure. I can only assume maybe he's picked up Baker Mayfield. I don't know why, just to stop Trev having Baker Mayfield, maybe. I don't know. Maybe, yeah.
Well, it's interesting we talk about those two quarterbacks. I know it's briefly Bridgewater there, but it was Tua in the conversation before. When you talk about the Miami quarterbacks, we always say they're great in fantasy because of the receivers that are on there. And we've said the same all year about Cousins. And it's funny how these two are now in the final because Cousins is not lighting up the world and he's not amazing. He's just consistent. But having that receiving core with Jefferson, Thielen, and Hockenson now, it just elevates them in fantasy. And as you've just said, with Waddle and Hill on your team, for fantasy, it's just spectacular. They're just great, aren't they, to slot in at that position? You don't need a Josh Allen or Mahomes when you've got people like that in fantasy.
Yeah, they are. It's bizarre because it really felt like this year was the year that it changed. There's been this sort of like change towards getting the rushing quarterback and feeling like whether or not that's what you have to do in order to do it. And I kind of put Allen and Mahomes in that. I mean, I know Mahomes doesn't rush as much, but he's still pretty strong at it and does a lot of it. Allen obviously very good at it. Hurts, Lamar, I know he's been out injured, but again, that you've got these rushing quarterbacks, and it is kind of a bit of a cheat code. It's what we find a lot of the time, that if you can get these rushing quarterbacks, they pick up so many points just from rushing. Yet we have a final with Kirk Cousins and either Teddy Bridgewater or Sam Darnold now, and even if that wasn't the case on Trev's team, it would have been Tannehill. So it's still, yeah, he might pick up the odd 1 or 2 rushing touchdowns, but he's not going to rush loads of yards. So it's interesting that that's how it's gone, because it kind of felt very much like this was the year where especially because of Hurts. I think because of that. I mean, I had Hurts for all the season until he got injured, and it just kind of felt like that was what was getting a lot of people through. But maybe it's not. A lot of people will come out, because I think in the off season, a lot of people are going to come out with articles and stuff that you'll read of, you need to make sure you get yourself a rushing quarterback. And obviously the more that come out of college, the more rushing quarterbacks we get. And maybe that will be the case in the future, but it just goes to show it's not the only way to win at the moment.
Yeah, you can definitely sit on that position and redraft. And I know you've done it in previous years, and sit on the quarterback and just get someone who's consistent, that plays all year, that hasn't tended to have a lot of injuries. I mean, the biggest cheat code this year for me, you say it's Hurts, I think it's been Fields. The numbers that he put up in a good stretch, and he doesn't even throw the ball. It's not dual tandem, is it? It's a rushing quarterback. So yeah, it's been interesting. But as we're talking about quarterbacks, let's move on to this week and talk about who you really like, who are you locking in, who are you playing to win you that championship game at quarterback.
So, I mean, obviously you've got the obvious guys, as always, your Burrows, your Allen, Mahomes. I think the Buffalo-Cincinnati game could potentially be an absolute shootout. So that obviously you're going to keep guys like that. I was kind of down to 2, and I like Jared Goff in this. He's at home, so that's another, it's something that we've said for a lot of the season. So I thought I'd go for something slightly different. I went for Dak Prescott in this one. Now, they're away to Tennessee, and I feel like that might be a big enough reason to scare people a little bit. But, the Titans are 31st when it comes to giving up receiving yards. Even in the last 3 weeks, it's not been any better. They are they are that bad at it. We've said for ages you can go over the top when it comes to that. But they also stop the run game, and they're currently second against rushing yards. Also, you've got Tony Pollard out by the look of it for this game. It looks like he's going to miss Thursday night, and so it feels like it kind of opens up a little bit for Dak to kind of hit his receivers a bit more, the tight ends as well, who are very good, and just have that ability to go over the top a lot more. So I think that he is definitely one that would be worth looking at. I know a lot of people have probably got him. He's not necessarily going to be a waiver wire pickup or anything like that, but I think that he's probably the strongest that I saw. And then kind of if you did want someone who is on the waivers, like as we've said, I think Teddy Bridgewater's got a fairly decent matchup. He's got strong wide receivers in Hill and Waddle. I also think, I know Gesicki's not really been as good as he has been in the past, but I still think he's a good tight end. They're going up against the Patriots, who, to be honest, the Patriots are one of them teams where they're very strong against the run, but they do give up yards when it comes to the pass. And so I think that you can get something out of that as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the Dak Prescott one. I mean, he's a guy that we've had in previous weeks. I know in the last sort of 4 or 5 weeks, we've had him down as a potential sit-him, just because how much they were using that run game and how they were struggling to move the ball with the pass. But looking at the stats and looking what CeeDee Lamb's been doing, I think I was a little bit wrong and a little bit hesitant, because the last couple of weeks, he's been good. I think Dak was really good last week. So, yeah, there's no reason why he shouldn't be a start this week. I had in Jared Goff, just thought, everything you've said. He's at home. He played well again last week away, but at home against the Bears, it's got to be, that's a championship winning style of play there. What's your thoughts on Jared Goff?
Yeah, I mean, like you say, it's a Bears defense that isn't the best in the league. Then they're not too bad when it comes to against the pass. I think that was probably the one thing that kind of swung it for me. Tennessee really are quite a when it comes to the pass, they are quite disappointing, and it kind of goes more towards Dak for that reason. But yeah, I think Goff at home is a different beast. We've said this for ages, that whenever he is at home, it's a lot easier for him because he's in a controlled environment, and there isn't as many problems. And they just generally seem a little bit stronger at home compared to what they do when they're away. I think he's got great options St. Brown is a great option. He's got Swift. If Campbell ever wants to bloody use him, that would be nice. So Swift in the passing game there as well. And even these sort of like wide receivers that you don't even think about, kind of like the Raymond and Reynolds, they don't even get mentioned, yet they're more than capable. So I think that Goff has got plenty of guys there that can help. Chicago defense, as we've said, it's not awful against the pass, but it's not fantastic. They haven't got anything to play for. This is the other thing. I think that's another thing that you have to look out for in this game, or of this week anyway. What do these teams actually have to play for? Tennessee have got nothing to play for. I know it sounds stupid, but they have nothing to play for, because even if they lose, it all comes down to next week. So it really opens it up for Dak for that as well. When it comes to, when it comes to Goff and the Lions, they've got everything to play for, because they desperately need another win in order to get themselves in the playoffs. And, the Bears have got nothing to play for. So you kind of, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, you feel like Goff's a good shout, certainly for this week.
If anything, the Bears want to lose, where it puts them in position to draft as well. Moving down 1 or 2 spaces could be quite detrimental to, if they've got a player in mind they feel they can change their franchise. They're currently sitting at the 2nd pick in the draft, aren't they? So would be sensible, I believe. So yeah, you're right.
Well, I think it's an interesting argument, because I was listening to something about the Colts earlier today, where they were sort of, they've come out and said they're going to keep Nick Foles in for this week, and it kind of feels a little bit like we're doing this for the betterment of the team for the future, because obviously them losing means that it kind of knocks away the chances of of the Colts getting a higher pick, and they've been looking for a quarterback ever since Andrew Luck left. So it's like it is an interesting argument, because obviously, like, you had all the trouble with Miami and were they tanking and all that sort of thing, and they were basically saying no, we weren't honest. And it's really difficult because you do have like fantasy stuff where you play for money, and you do have gambling now and things like that, especially in America where it wasn't before, but they've embraced it now. So it is a bit of a complicated issue, but yeah, it feels like they need to, these teams don't have quite as much of an incentive to really push themselves this week.
Yeah, definitely. It makes the championship weekend all that more interesting. I know we've had the issue before when we were talking about teams resting players and not wanting to risk them, but obviously that extra game that they've added to the season is really helpful for fantasy, meaning you can get the extra week out there. But we move on to the running backs again. Who do you like? Who you're locking in? Who's winning you at the running back position this week?
So again, there are some obvious names. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is an obvious one, given who he's going up against. We all know anyone loves to have a run against the Raiders. So I think McCaffrey is definitely one to look at. The other ones that I kind of looked at and I sort of thought, no, they have got decent matchups. James Conner. I think James Conner looks very strong at the moment since he's come back from injury. And he is all that there is in that offense at the moment with the problems they've had at quarterback. So I think Conner, I could see having a good matchup. I think David Montgomery, because again, it's like that's all there is. And you're going up against that Lions defense, which I know that they've improved against the run, but got destroyed by the Panthers against the run last week. I could see similar things happening again with Chicago. It's always Montgomery and Fields, and that's it really. But the one that I kind of really came down on was Travis Etienne. Now, Etienne hasn't been that great, to be honest, in the last few weeks, but he's away at Houston. Texans are one of the worst. I mean, they are the worst. They're 32nd when it comes to going against rushing yards per game. And you can't get any worse, but the average amount that they do does get worse when they're at home. It gets even worse than that. So you want to play whoever the running back is against the Texans. Again, as we were saying, a team that has very little to play for. They want to lose effectively. So it's like, I feel like Etienne's in a really nice place. And on top of that, you've seen over the last few weeks, the attempts have been getting more and more that he's been having. So like week 13, he had 13, week 14 was 17 attempts, 15, 19, last week 22. So he's steadily getting more and more action as it's going along. And it doesn't matter what the game script is. It's like it could be really tight games. They could be really high scoring games. He's just getting more action. So I think because of that, Etienne's probably my number one choice against Houston.
Mine is a guy that I brought up a few times on the betting show, and I think the last 3 weeks he's been a safe bet to lock your money in and get on him, and that is Jerick McKinnon. I know he's going up against the Broncos, but what he's doing in the receiving game for that team, not just the rushing, because Pacheco might be using a bit more of the rushing. I just think he's guaranteed a touchdown every single week. I know he's going up against the Broncos, but that secondary is going to have a little bit watching the wide receivers. Kadarius Toney's back now as well, isn't he? So they're going to be busy watching those wide receivers, which I think is going to leave McKinnon open where he's been open the last 3 weeks, just in that sort of dump off spot, just past the O-line and just receiving. And once you get it into his hands, he seems to be getting the business done. So I think he's a surefire lock in for me. Like you said, with Conner and Montgomery, I feel like he's just as much as a straight up winner in an offense that we've discussed on the betting show, where we've gone, who's it going to? It could go to anyone.
Yeah.
That is your guy, isn't it? That's where it's going in the receiving game as well.
Yeah, McKinnon does seem to be getting more and more involved. This kind of happened last year, didn't it, with McKinnon? I vaguely remember him turning up towards the end, and he actually not not at the very end, but like in the playoffs. I think he had a few touchdowns in the playoffs as well, didn't he? And just yeah, just seems to generally get more involved towards the end. Obviously, as the pass catching back, which in Kansas City is huge, and that's what you want. Unfortunately, Pacheco will take quite a lot away from him being the main guy, but it doesn't really seem to matter because they do just score so many points a lot of the time. So, yeah, I mean, McKinnon looks a good choice for this week.
Yeah, onto the wide receivers. I think we might get a couple of those games that we were talking about that there might be nothing to play for with a couple of the flex spots in this. But who you got at the wide receiver?
So again, a few guys that I kind of feel are the obvious, as I said about Tennessee and going for Dak. So CeeDee Lamb kind of feels like an obvious choice that you can go for. The Buffalo Cincinnati game, I think you could pretty much pick any of the main guys out of that. You've got Diggs, you've got Chase. Obviously, we all know that I have a thing at the moment for T. Higgins. I've had him in my fantasy season all year. So I think Higgins is probably going to be the bigger price. He's the one that I normally pick for most betting things, but I think Higgins will have a good game. One guy who is a little bit different, Drake London. I think Drake London this week might be worth having a look. They're playing Arizona, is that right? I think Atlanta are playing them. You can kind of score on them. You can score in Arizona, and they're not a lot, but there was a little bit of rhythm there last week with Ridder and London. He seemed to be finding him a little bit more. So I think Drake London is definitely worth having a look at. However, the main guy that I went for, and the reason I've done this is just purely because I'm a Packers fan and we want to win the game. So I've gone for Romeo Doubs this week. I think he's like as certainly as a waiver wire pickup. He's on a lot of waiver wires. So I think this is someone, if you're struggling and you need a flex spot, this is someone to go for. So home to Minnesota. Minnesota, we know that you can score on. They're 32nd against passing yards per game. The Packers need to win. There is no other alternative here. It's like they have to win if they've got any chance of getting into the playoffs. And even then, it's a bit of a tough sledding, but they really need to win. And Dobbs has looked decent. He looked decent before he got injured. He looked like the main guy there. He then obviously spent a lot of time out, but in week 15, he had about 30% of snaps. Week 16, went up to 62% in snaps. Watson went out injured against Miami. Now, he's questionable. I think whether he plays, it's a bit all up in the air. No one really knows at the moment. But if he doesn't play, Dobbs basically becomes the main guy. So I think that you have to be looking at him. Even if Watson does play, I think there's a strong chance that Dobbs is going to be quite heavily used, and almost whether Watson will almost be the decoy for things, and so Dobbs will be used a lot. He had 5 attempts, five receptions, 5 targets last week, and I just think that it's a game that you feel will probably be relatively high scoring because you've got Minnesota who are scoring well. The Packers need to score in order to win. So you kind of feel like, I think it's the 3rd or the 4th highest total in the betting markets this week. So I think because of that, you have to feel that they've got a chance of it being a decent game and a high scoring game. So yeah, I quite like Dobbs as a flex play because you need someone and you can get him off the waiver wire.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great choice. Obviously, prior to Christian Watson exploding onto the scene with how well he was playing, Dobbs was your wide receiver 1. He overtook Lazard, looked very consistent, was playing well. Yeah. So if he's back up to the fitness that he was, then yeah, definitely a great option to go for. And we said previous weeks, anyone going up against the Vikings has got a bit of pace about them. They're definitely options to go for. Now, I wanted to bring up the Giants wide receiving core. They're going up against the Colts, who have been horrendous in the secondary over the last three or 4 weeks now. I think their stats across the season are kind of like blanketing over how bad they've been, because they're ranked at like number 7. They were the number 1 at one point, but the points that they've conceded in the last 4 weeks to some of the teams, I can see some of those Giants receivers getting some points, whether it be Slayton, Hodgins, or Richie James. I think there's points to be had this week. The Giants winning in. If they win, they're in the playoffs. Colts lose, get a better pick in the in the thing. So there's got to be something in there for me. I know lots of weeks we've steered clear of the Giants receivers and always put it all on Saquon. But do you think one of them, all of them, has got some value here, and which one would it be?
Well, that's the problem. That is the issue, isn't it? Which one is it? Because you can't guarantee anything here. I mean, the other thing is I just wonder whether that would make it viable for any of them, because the matchup, as we said, I mean, look, the Colts are going to go out and they're going to put some effort in. They're not just going to roll over for the fun of it.
Well, they might. But they might just play really, really well in the first half, show that they're good at football, and then go, "Oh, don't forget, we've got to lose."
Yeah, but they got Nick Foles at quarterback, so maybe not. I think what you're probably going to find. I mean, I'm obviously not 100% sure, but to me, what would make sense is that the Giants take a lead, and then Saquon just has the ball like all the time, and because Foles is just not going to score enough. You know, that's all it is. I mean, I think that's probably more likely to be the game script of it, and so I think it's a great game for Saquon. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know which one. I suppose Slayton would be the obvious of the three, because, you know, we've seen him play. We know how good he can be. The other two, yeah, okay, we've seen them play, but they haven't really been around that much. They haven't really done, you know, they've had games that have been all right, but they haven't been amazing. Whereas Slayton, I could see Slayton getting a touchdown and 90 yards. You know, that's within his remit. The others, I'm not so sure, apart from one-off games. Whereas for Slayton, I've seen him do it multiple times over the years. So I think because of that, you would go Slayton, and you feel like he's probably most likely to. But I do feel like the game script kind of goes more towards Barkley, and pretty much that's it.
I think Hodgins is a good gamble this week. I really do. He's been consistent.
Yeah.
There's only one game of the last 4 that he's for me been a bit quiet, and I think he still received the ball quite a bit, still had the targets, but yeah, Slayton is probably the obvious one. Now, there's also another name going around this week that people are saying, pick him up, start him. I'm out on it, and I've even noticed that the NFL app is saying he's a potential must start. It's Hunter Renfrow going against the 49ers with Stidham as the quarterback. I would say he was a sit-em. He's on our waivers. What's your thoughts on that? Would you take a gamble on Renfrow this week?
No, I probably wouldn't be looking at anybody on the Raiders apart from Jacobs. I mean, if you've got Adams, you kind of have to play him, really. I mean, you don't really have much choice in that matter. I mean, to have someone like that, you have to play him. But Jacobs is the one who's probably going to. I think you might see a lot of running from them. There's going to be a struggle for them, whatever. I mean, Stidham's not great, and the 49ers defense is amazing. Yeah, well, yeah. The 49ers defense is amazing. I mean, I don't see a lot happening here other than just. I don't even. I mean, I get what they're doing, and they're clearly going to move on from Carr. This is clearly a signal that they're moving on from him, and they want to see what Stidham can do. But I mean, you haven't really given him much of a chance going up against the 49ers defense, who want to keep winning. So yeah, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't go near Renfrow. I wouldn't go near Waller. I probably would look at Adams, because if my fantasy team was in a position where I had Devontae Adams, I'd probably have to play him because it's Devontae Adams and Jacobs. But no, I wouldn't be going to Renfro. I don't think.
I thought it was a very weird read for me, and I was like, let's get this out in the open and let's have a chat about it, because he's a sit for me as well. I'm not sure how he's made it onto even as a flex. I think that's beyond massive. I'd rather take any of the Giants receivers over him for this week as a flex option, if that's what they were portraying as. I know he had a good week last week, didn't he? Got in the end zone and had a nice little.
Yeah, but that was with Carr, wasn't it? You see, this is the thing. It's a completely different thing. It's a different quarterback against a much better defense. I mean, it's.
Yeah, that defense will worry me massively. You know, it's for me, it's the best defense in the league.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I've been saying the Broncos all season, but then they've given up, haven't they? So that's why.
Let's give a bit of airtime to those tight ends. Usually we leave them out. We only bring them up occasionally. There's one name I wanted to bang out there for you, so don't worry about trying to pluck someone off because I've thrown it on you. Is Evan Ingram the must start now of any game going forward? He's putting up sort of Travis Kelce numbers at the moment, isn't he, for the tight end position? He's still plugging in him and playing. He's going up against the Texans. Is he the guy now at the tight end position?
Well, I wouldn't say he's the guy, but he's definitely someone that I think, certainly at the moment, if you've got him, you're playing him, because you're not going to find anyone better on the waiver wire or anything like that. So if you've got him, you're playing him. I actually feel like it might not be the best matchup for him against the Texans, just purely because the Texans are so easy to run against. I think that takes away a lot of the passing. But yeah, I mean, you're going to play him. I mean, it's the last. He's kind of been a bit hit and miss. I mean, I've just got it up, and last week he got 11.3 points. The week before was 6.2. You know, so it's a bit kind of, it's not great. It's just that he's looked more involved, I think, is what has got everyone kind of looking. So I think because of that, you're going to play him. He's going to get paid. You know, he will get paid. I think he's on a 1-year deal, isn't he, with Jacksonville?
Yeah, he might just get injured like he did every year with us.
And it's worked really well for him. And you know, I mean, I think he's currently the tight end. I mean, this isn't difficult to be this, I might add, because once you get past Kelce, it gets bad. But he's currently the tight end 6 on the season and has looked a solid option. And yeah, I could see him getting paid, and he's worth putting in your team just because you're not going to get anything better anywhere else. Good choice.
And also, there's a name that hasn't cropped up a single week in the betting show, in the fantasy show, in anything. But last week, he cropped up a lot. Shane Zylstra, the tight end for the Lions, holding 3 touchdowns last week. He's going up against the Bears. Can he do it again?
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I mean, it's going to be, what's the name, isn't it? It's Jared Goff. But Jared Goff's at home, you know, so it's possibly, I mean, it kind of worked in his favor because they were from behind, so he had to pass a lot. He seems to be out there quite a bit. I will admit, I don't really know much about him. But
no.
He had a great.
Will you be including him in the betting show? Maybe you'll be definitely checking the odds out now.
No, I don't. I don't think so. I don't think I'll be picking him up for that. No, I just think that. I think you'll find that with the Lions at home, it'll probably go back to normal a bit more. Than Brown and get involved more, like say the other wide receivers and the running backs. I don't think he's going to be scoring 3 touchdowns in a game anytime soon. Let's put it that way.
No, I can't see him repeating that. Just wanted.
He's had his Tyler Higbee moment, hasn't he? You know, this is the thing.
Yeah, well, you know, you got to give him a bit of airtime because this might be the only time that he does it. Who knows? we might be picking him up early in the draft next season. If he continues it for the next 2 games, who knows?
Well, he might be a good one for your dynasty team. You see, you never know if you're playing dynasty, get him on there. So.
Well, you have to stay tuned and watch through the off season to see where we put him on that one. No questions for us today. Obviously, it was a bit of a one-off being the championship game, so we didn't want to tinker with your teams too much. But if you have got any questions and you do want some advice on them, please message us on Twitter, on Instagram, any form of social media. Me, Adam, maybe Freddie, if you want to risk that advice, we'll help you out and point you in the right direction. So just let us know and we'll get back to you. But this is the last of the proper season shows. But we will be continuing throughout the year, bringing you fancy advice on redrafts, dynasties, and everything you possibly can think of that happens in fancy football. So don't go anywhere. We'll be with you after this game. Thanks for tuning in. Best of luck in your championship games, and goodbye.